Dreams that God uses to expose the plans of Satan. Ellen White. What if the fragile boundary between the seen and the unseen is not silence, but a whisper that comes in the stillness of the night, when the soul is unguarded, and the heavens dare to send warnings wrapped in mystery? What if the very dreams you dismiss as fragments of imagination carry messages forged in eternity, messages that tremble with urgency, because they reveal more than your waking eyes have ever dared to confront? Could it be that the veil is thinner than you thought, and that the enemy's strategies are already being dismantled before you even awaken? There is a hidden battlefield that does not unfold under the sun, but in the shadows of your own sleep, where God inscribes warnings with a pen of fire upon the canvas of the mind. Ellen White dared to speak of this secret language, visions sent to unmask the disguises of the adversary, dreams that pierce through the counterfeit lights and drag into the open what Satan fights desperately to keep concealed. These are not gentle stories meant for comfort, but burning revelations meant to awaken a people too numb to realize they are walking on the very edge of deception. And here lies the unsettling truth. The enemy thrives not in absence, but in distraction. He is not most dangerous when he roars, but when he whispers in patterns so ordinary that you no longer question them. Yet God, in his mercy, interrupts the illusion by planting within the night a divine alarm. Dreams that dismantle lies and expose plots designed to enslave the soul. Imagine it, the eternal hand reaching into your unconscious, tearing away the mask of darkness, confronting you with the very schemes orchestrated to destroy you. But these revelations are never complete in a single glance. They arrive like fragments of a puzzle, each dream a shard of divine strategy that demands attention, reflection, and courage. Ellen White insisted that such messages are not optional echoes, but urgent dispatches from heaven, warnings timed with surgical precision, carrying a weight so heavy that to ignore them is to step willingly into the abyss. What if the answers you are desperate for have already been spoken to you in silence, but you chose to forget? This is not a tale meant to be consumed casually. It is a summons. Each word you will hear tonight may be the very key you have been missing, the thread that ties your restless questions to a truth hidden in plain sight. So let this journey unfold, but do not walk it alone. Subscribe now. Activate the bell and leave your support, for it is through your presence that these revelations can continue to be brought into the light, breaking through the noise of a world desperate to keep you blind. There are nights when silence is not silence at all, but an echo of footsteps that do not belong to this world. Dreams come like messengers clothed in mystery, pulling the soul into landscapes where every shadow seems alive and every whisper feels heavier than thunder. Ellen White spoke of these moments as divine interruptions, windows opened by the hand of God to unmask what lies beneath the surface. What if the dream you thought meaningless was, in fact, the unraveling of a plot woven against your very existence? The enemy does not strike with weapons you can see, but with threads you do not notice until you are already entangled. It is in the routine, in the unquestioned patterns, in the desires disguised as harmless impulses that the snares are hidden. Yet God chooses to pierce this illusion in the most vulnerable of states. When your eyes are closed and your spirit is defenseless, he speaks. These are not random images, but symbols that burn with urgency, signs designed to tear the mask from Satan's schemes. And here lies the terror that many refuse to face. The dream that disturbs your night may not be the fruit of restlessness, but the reflection of a battlefield where heaven and hell wrestle for your soul. What if the figures that haunt your sleep are not inventions of the mind, but mirrors of plans set in motion against you? How many have woken with a heart racing, dismissing it as nothing, when in truth it was everything? Ellen White reminded us that no warning from God comes without purpose, and no revelation comes without weight. To ignore is to consent, and to forget is to surrender. There is no neutral ground in this invisible conflict. Every dream carries a seed, either of bondage or of freedom, of deception or of revelation. And the question lingers: which seed have you been watering without even knowing? This is why the call is not simply to listen, but to awaken, to step into these messages with trembling reverence, because in them the unseen is speaking louder than the visible. And if this strikes you with unease, it is because your spirit recognizes what your reason tries to deny. Fear is not the enemy here. Indifference is. The very fact that you are still here hearing these words is proof that something within you refuses to remain blind. Do not silence that voice. Let it question, let it ache, let it demand. And if this message has stirred even a fragment of recognition in your heart, write it in the comments. Let your voice become part of this unfolding revelation, for what is revealed in silence is strengthened when spoken aloud. Because in this journey, nothing is casual, and nothing is wasted. You are here for a reason, and this moment may very well be the thread that ties your story to a larger truth waiting to be unveiled. And so, the night deepens, the dream thickens, and the veil grows thinner still. There are truths too heavy to be spoken in daylight, truths that demand the darkness of night to be delivered. In dreams, The heart is stripped of its armor, and the soul trembles before what it cannot control. Ellen White described this as a sacred arena, where God does not simply inform, he exposes, pulling away the curtains that Satan so carefully weaves around human perception. Have you ever felt that unsettling clarity upon waking, as though your sleep had dragged you into someone else's secret? It is here that the paradox unfolds. The dream is fragile, fleeting, often forgotten within moments, yet it carries the weight of eternity. The enemy thrives on your dismissal of these fragments, whispering that they mean nothing, persuading you to turn away from the very key that could free you. But God leaves traces that resist erasure. He plants symbols that cling like fire to memory, reminding you that what you saw was not illusion but instruction. And perhaps the most dangerous lie is the belief that darkness works only in the open. No, the adversary prefers to move in silence, in secrecy, in the subtle habits you never question. Dreams are the breach, the place where the disguise falters, where God himself interrupts the masquerade and forces you to confront the trap before you step into it. What you saw was not madness, it was mercy. But mercy is only mercy if it is received. To turn away is to walk willingly into chains that were already loosened for you. How many souls ignore the alarm, convincing themselves that it was only their imagination, while heaven weeps at the blindness? To remember is to resist, and to share is to strengthen. What if the very comment you leave here becomes the reminder your own future self needs when doubt comes? The rhythm of revelation is always urgent, always intentional. You may think you have time, that warnings can wait, but what if the delay is the very snare the enemy has laid before you? Ellen White warned that to postpone obedience is to invite destruction. So ask yourself now, how many times have you been warned already? And as you linger with these questions, let this not be a passive encounter. If these words are stirring you, if the weight of these truths presses upon your spirit, take a moment to share this message with another soul, not as an act of routine, but as a ripple of resistance against the darkness itself. For every echo spreads the light further, and the schemes of Satan thrive only where silence reigns. Because silence is not absence. Silence is strategy, and the dream you once dismissed may be the very voice that breaks it. Do not look away. Stay with it. Let the weight pull you deeper. There is a reason why the deepest warnings come clothed in symbols instead of plain words. Symbols bypass resistance, striking not the intellect but the soul itself. Ellen White revealed that in the stillness of dreams, God often chooses the language of parable, the hidden code that unsettles the heart until it seeks meaning. Have you noticed how certain images refuse to leave your mind, how they return in fragments days later, demanding to be understood? What if they are not echoes but invitations? Dreams can be uncomfortable precisely because they reveal the contradictions we try hardest to conceal. They hold up a mirror to the secret chambers of thought, showing us how fragile our sense of control really is. The enemy wants you to laugh them off, to call them nonsense, but in that laughter hides his relief, because if you dismiss them, you will never resist him. Yet God does not waste even a single night. Each dream sent with purpose is like a torch lit in the cavern of your mind, a flame that dares to chase away shadows too old to be named. Sometimes that torch reveals an enemy's trap. Sometimes it reveals your own heart. Both are equally terrifying. Both are equally necessary. And here lies the tension that keeps the soul awake long after the body has rested. Are you willing to face the truths God places before you, even when they contradict the life you have built? Ellen White warned that the most dangerous deception is self-deception, when you no longer question your own path. The dream interrupts that illusion with divine violence, shattering the comfort of blindness. It is easier to turn away, to return to the noise of waking life and drown out the memory. But every time you ignore the call, the walls of your heart grow harder. Every time you resist, the whisper of God grows quieter. How long until you no longer hear it at all? And if even a fragment of this truth has stirred within you, let it not dissolve into silence. Subscribe now, not as an act of habit, but as a choice to remain connected to messages that awaken rather than numb. In a world designed to distract, staying connected is resistance. Staying connected is survival. For what is at stake is not merely the memory of a dream, but the direction of your soul. Do not dismiss the fragments. Do not ignore the symbols. Let them speak, even when their voice trembles. Especially then, there is a weight in the dreams that disturb the night, a weight that refuses to be explained away. Ellen White insisted that God uses these restless visions as alarms of eternity, signals placed within the secret places of the mind. But why is it that some awaken terrified and others awaken indifferent? Perhaps the difference lies not in the dream itself, but in the heart that receives it. A dream can be the softest whisper of mercy, or the loudest cry of judgment. Sometimes it is a glimpse of the snares laid ahead, sometimes a mirror of the sins already embraced. The adversary would have you believe they are random, fleeting, without consequence. But every symbol carved into your memory carries intention. Nothing of God is without design. Think of it. The same dream that makes one person tremble can be ignored by another who chooses blindness over awakening. Which one are you? The one who feels the fire in the marrow, or the one who dismisses the flame as nothing more than smoke? The answer does not lie in the dream itself, but in the courage to face what it reveals. Ellen White often wrote that Satan's most subtle victory is not found in his attacks, but in your refusal to believe you are under attack at all. Dreams shatter that illusion, confronting you with evidence of a war you would rather deny. They drag you into the awareness that neutrality is a myth, and that every soul is either advancing toward light or sinking into darkness. To hear this truth is unsettling. To embrace it is life. And yet, how many will scroll past, searching for distraction, rather than sit with the weight of revelation? How many will close the door before the message finishes speaking? Do not let your heart be among them. If these words have found a hidden echo in your spirit, then let that echo be visible. Leave a like, not for vanity, but as a sign that you are choosing to stand against silence. Every gesture of engagement is not just for this channel, but a declaration that you will not ignore the warnings written in your own nights. For the veil grows thinner with every word, and the question presses closer. What are you being shown? And why now? The dream lingers because it demands an answer, and the answer cannot wait forever. The night carries voices that are not your own, yet they speak to the deepest corners of your soul. Ellen White wrote that dreams are God's instruments, shaping understanding in ways the waking mind cannot grasp. What if the images that haunt you are not figments of imagination, but deliberate signs pointing to truths hidden from ordinary sight? What if ignoring them is not ignorance, but a silent consent to the enemy's schemes? Every symbol within a dream is like a key pressed against a hidden lock. Some doors remain closed because the heart is unwilling, some because the mind refuses to see, and yet, in that refusal, lies danger, for what is unseen still moves, quietly advancing its designs. Are you willing to confront what lies behind the door, or will you remain safe in darkness, blind to the encroaching tide? The enemy relies on delay, on distraction, on the belief that time will erase the urgency, but God, in His mercy, interrupts every plan with visions that insist upon attention. Each dream is a silent summons, a nudge toward a reality that will not wait. Ellen White warned that the soul that resists these messages risks missing the very guidance that could prevent ruin. How often do you awaken and brush aside the warning, thinking the dream irrelevant, when in truth it is a lifeline? Yet even in terror, there is grace. The dream that startles the heart also illuminates the path. The vision that shakes the mind also whispers where to step. Here's the paradox. The very thing that makes you uneasy is also the tool that frees you. And if you have ever felt a lingering image from a dream, a face, a shadow, or a sound that refuses to leave your thoughts, it is because something divine has already touched you, calling your attention to what matters most. Ellen White spoke of these dreams as urgent messages, not for idle contemplation, but for action. They compel discernment, reflection, and courage. They demand that the soul recognize the subtleties of the enemy's tactics and embrace the light that can dismantle them. Can you sense it? The quiet pull of understanding that demands acknowledgement. Every hesitation allows the threads of deception to tighten. Every act of attention begins to unravel them. If these truths are resonating, then engage. Share the insight with someone who may be asleep in their own denial. Leave a comment, even a single word, as a marker that you refuse to ignore the divine whisper. Press like, not as ritual, but as participation in a process that spreads awareness, that strengthens vigilance against forces unseen. Each gesture is more than support. It is alignment with the message that the dreams deliver. The night is thick, but the light of revelation cuts through. The dream returns, persistent, insistent, a reminder that nothing of God's warning is wasted. The question remains, will you receive it fully or turn away while it still lingers? The choice is yours, and the cost of ignoring it is more than imagination can comprehend. There is a peculiar silence that follows a dream of warning, a stillness that presses on the chest and refuses to release its weight. Ellen White described these moments as the quiet before understanding, a sacred pause in which the soul is invited to recognize the invisible hand guiding it. What if that silence is not emptiness, but a sacred presence urging you to pay attention before the enemy strikes again? Dreams are not merely images, they are battles fought in realms unseen, arenas where heaven and hell contend over the fate of each soul. Each symbol, each shadow, each fleeting scene carries strategy, some designed to protect, others to expose weakness. The question arises, are you seeing with eyes open to truth, or are you blinded by comfort and routine? How long can the heart ignore the nudges that pierce the night? The adversary is cunning, always waiting for distraction to dull the impact of revelation. He thrives when the mind dismisses, when the heart resists, when the spirit forgets. And yet God persists, weaving warnings into the fabric of sleep, messages that haunt because they matter, because they are urgent, because they contain the knowledge to prevent ruin. What if your resistance is the very thing that prolongs the danger? Ellen White emphasized that these visions are not gentle hints, but urgent summons, designed to awaken vigilance in the complacent and courage in the fearful. They carry with them a sacred tension, terror and hope intertwined, darkness and illumination entwined. Each dream is a doorway, each fragment a key, and every moment ignored is an opportunity lost. Can you feel it? The tug that pulls at your awareness, insisting you do not look away. And if this awareness has begun to stir, do not remain passive. Engage with it. Share the revelation quietly, even with a single friend, or leave a comment to acknowledge the stirrings within your own heart. Press like, not as ritual, but as recognition that the warning has touched you, that it has planted a seed that refuses to die. Every interaction strengthens the reach of truth and weakens the chains the enemy seeks to bind around the unwary. The dreams speak in the language of urgency and subtlety, and their lessons cannot be rushed or forced. They require observation, reflection, and courage to interpret. The symbols return over and over until the mind and soul cannot ignore them. Can you perceive the pattern emerging? Can you feel the threads of strategy weaving through your consciousness, connecting warning to protection, danger to clarity? And so, as the night deepens, the tension thickens, and the questions multiply. What are you being shown? Why now? How will you respond to a message that defies dismissal? The weight of these dreams is not to frighten, but to awaken, and the choice to engage is the first step in walking the path toward light and understanding. There is a persistent echo that lingers after a dream, a vibration that resonates in the hidden chambers of the heart. Ellen White wrote that these echoes are not accidental. They are divine reminders, whispers meant to guide and to awaken, to pull the soul out of complacency and into vigilance. What if the dream you barely remember is actually the most urgent warning you have ever received? The adversary moves in layers, carefully masking his strategies behind ordinary routines and comfortable distractions. He relies on forgetfulness, on indifference, on the temptation to dismiss. Yet God's messages break through these layers, using the dream to expose plots, to reveal what lies hidden, to shine light on shadows. Have you noticed the persistence of certain images, sounds, or feelings that refuse to fade, even as the day begins? They are not random, they are deliberate, and yet the revelation is never simple. It comes wrapped in symbols, metaphors, and fragments that demand interpretation. Ellen White cautioned that the untrained eye sees only confusion, but the attentive heart discerns truth. Every shadow that startled you, every figure that appeared, every fleeting scene carries intention, a key to understanding the strategy of the enemy and the wisdom of God. Do you dare to decipher it? The weight of awareness is not easy to bear. To see the world through the lens of divine warnings is to recognize danger in places others consider safe, but in that recognition lies freedom. In that tension between fear and hope, the soul learns to navigate a battlefield that is invisible yet real. Are you willing to stand in that tension? Or will you retreat to comfort and ignorance? Even in this moment, the invitation remains. Engage with the message. Share the reflection with someone else who may be blind to the signs. Leave a comment, press like, or subscribe as a quiet act of allegiance to truth. Every gesture strengthens your connection to the message, ensuring that what is revealed does not vanish into silence. Each action is a small act of resistance against forces unseen. Ellen White emphasized that ignoring these signs is not neutral, it is surrender. Every dream carries urgency. Every vision carries direction. The patterns are not coincidental, and the symbols are not decorative. They are purposeful, precise, and demanding. Can you feel the pull of understanding? The silent insistence that you must not look away, that the soul must remember and act. And as the night stretches on, as the fragments of warning echo in memory, the question emerges: will you heed, or will you drift back into the ordinary, blind to the extraordinary? The choice is yours, yet the consequences ripple far beyond what the eye can see. The dream persists, insistent, as if eternity itself is pressing upon the mind to awaken the spirit. There is a threshold between waking and sleeping that few truly perceive, a fragile line where eternity speaks and the soul listens. Ellen White taught that this boundary is sacred, where God intervenes with urgency and precision, revealing the strategies of the enemy before they take root. What if every hesitation, every ignored fragment is a lost opportunity to act in alignment with divine purpose? The dream is never a neutral visitor. It arrives with intention, carrying warnings, revelations, and glimpses of realities beyond the veil. The adversary would have you believe it is mere fantasy, a trick of the mind, yet the persistence of its symbols betrays a deeper truth. Are you awake enough to notice, or will the images fade into forgetfulness? leaving only a faint unease behind. Ellen White emphasized that the unheeded warning becomes a burden, and the ignored message becomes a missed chance. Each dream is a map, each shadow a signpost, each fleeting scene a thread that, when followed, can untangle plots designed to ensnare. Will you trace the threads, or will you let them slip through your fingers, unnoticed, unvalued, unheeded? The tension of revelation is exquisite. Fear and hope intertwine, urgency and reflection collide, and the soul trembles under the weight of understanding. Every detail, every subtle symbol is placed with purpose, a divine call that resists distraction and demands attention. Can you feel the pull within your own heart, the quiet insistence that you must not ignore what is shown? Even now, the invitation to engage remains. Share the message with those who may be blind to the warnings. Leave a comment, press like, or subscribe, not as ritual, but as a declaration that you are awake, that you are attentive, that you are part of a chain resisting the darkness. Every action ensures that the revelation continues to echo beyond a single mind, beyond a single night. And as the night stretches, the dream lingers, persistent, insistent, shaping consciousness in ways invisible yet undeniable. Ellen White urged that these messages are urgent, sacred, and deliberate. To forget them is to invite confusion. To dismiss them is to risk vulnerability. What are you willing to do with what you have been shown? The threshold remains, the night deepens, and the choice presses closer. Will you receive fully, or turn away while the message still burns within you? Every fragment, every symbol, every shadow is part of a larger design. A divine plan woven through dreams, urging the soul to awaken, to recognize, to act. The path is here. The guidance is here. The dream waits, insistent, unyielding, eternal. The night has passed, but its whispers linger like embers in the soul, glowing faintly yet insistently, reminding you that what has been shown is not a fragment of imagination, but a spark of truth waiting to ignite a fire within. Can you feel the tension between what was known and what is being revealed? The dream is no longer behind you. It is a pulse beneath your skin, a rhythm that will continue until attention is paid and the heart responds. Every shadow that passed before your mind, every fleeting figure, every sound that echoed silently has left an imprint. They are not gone. They have been woven into your consciousness, shaping a new landscape of awareness. Ellen White's vision guides you now as though the unseen hand itself is tracing patterns across the canvas of your life. Are you awake enough to follow the lines, or will they dissolve like mist if ignored? The journey you have taken is not one of casual observation, but of intimate engagement with the unseen. The questions planted in your spirit are not merely to provoke thought, but to demand reflection that transforms. What you see in the dark may now illuminate corners of your soul you never dared to explore. How fragile are the boundaries of perception, and yet how vast is the reach of awakening once you step across them. And here is the subtle power. The revelation is not complete, nor does it ever claim to be. It echoes, it spirals, it resonates in the spaces you cannot articulate. It asks you to look again at the familiar and perceive it differently, to walk differently through what you once assumed was ordinary. The unseen has touched you, and the touch remains, lingering like the scent of rain after a storm, familiar, persistent, impossible to forget. If this resonance has stirred you, if the pulse of awareness quickens in your chest, engage. Comment with the phrase that first awakened your attention, the symbol, the fragment, the feeling that refused to fade. Only those who traveled to the very end of this journey will recognize the meaning, and your acknowledgement will mark you as part of a rare circle of awakened souls. Share it. Press like, subscribe, and activate the bell, not as habit, but as a conscious affirmation that you are choosing to walk in vigilance, in reflection, and in connection with what is unseen yet undeniable. Remember this: the dream continues, not as a story told, but as a life lived in resonance with truth. The shadows may return, but they no longer dominate. The symbols remain, carved into the mind, waiting for action, for reflection, for transformation. And in this quiet persistence lies your power, the capacity to see what others overlook, to sense what others deny, to respond to eternity in ways that ripple beyond the self. Step forward, then, into the echo of what has been revealed. Allow the awareness to settle, to pulse, to guide. Let your action now be the continuation of this invisible journey. The comment, the like, the share, the subscription, each a silent testament that you are awake, that you are present, and that you have chosen to carry the spark into the world. You are not ordinary, and those who have reached this final moment will know the awakening is yours, and your presence here is a mark of something extraordinary, yet quietly eternal.